were free. And today, in many respects, we still have a lot of people who don't know that they are free based on the some of the behavior and the conduct and the things that we are tolerating. I listened to Reverend Al Sharpton recently, who talked about how we have forgotten the struggles for the right to vote. We have forgotten all of the things we went through to get these amendments, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, and the freedoms, the struggle for uh, integration, desegregation, all of those things that were supposed to give us what everybody else already had because we were excluded from the intention of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And so, as we get closer to the July 4th, the words of Frederick Douglass become even more significant to us when he raised the question in Rochester in 1853 or 58, it was, and when he was invited to speak there in Rochester, New York. And after a very eloquent introduction and thank you to the people, he raised the question, what is your 4th of July to me? Because of all that we were suffering, even when we were supposed to be free. And so here we are now with a rich history behind us. The issue today is not our history. The issue is what will we do to build on it going forward to keep people like a Donald Trump and those who are radical right-wing people like him from continuing to steal all of our heritage and our history, taking the names of Black people off of monuments and canceling things, restoring statues that were removed, and restoring the names to military bases that had been named after Confederate folks, and just anything and everything from banning on that can possibly be done in an effort to erase us and to erase our culture. And I think that we must celebrate ourselves, we must celebrate our people, and we need to celebrate not from the standpoint of who's going to hold the biggest party, but we need to celebrate from the standpoint of providing serious reminders of what brought us here and what our responsibility is going forward. So these are things that I feel so strongly about. And I'm looking in my lifetime to see us return to the things that are important and to return to the respect that we're supposed to have and to return first by respecting ourselves before we can expect others to respect us.
Well, Dr. Warren, one of the things that I am very concerned about with the Juneteenth celebrations and it being a federal holiday is the commercialization of Juneteenth. How do we stop people from just doing Juneteenth celebrations based on, again, commercializing it, trying to profit on it, but really don't have the true heart or meaning or even the character or the essence of why we do Juneteenth?
Well, America is such a capitalistic place that all you have to do is look at what they did with Kwanzaa. It used to be after Christmas sales. And then when Kwanzaa came along, starting on the 26th, going through to the 1st, what did they do? Then they came up with Kwanzaa shopping and they canceled pretty much the after Christmas sales because now they could capitalize. You and I remember when we first started doing Gold Coast Classic, how the Postal Service came to us as one of the first title sponsors of our classic and used the occasion of our gospel program at the Civic Center downtown to introduce the Kwanzaa stamp to America. And so we have people that will always try to make money on everything that takes place. The issue is for us not to contribute to that by falling into it. We've done this too much with the 4th of July. Everybody's got a party. We've done it with Labor Day. We've done it with Memorial Day. And even though Black people initiated the celebration of Memorial Day, which we pointed out last month, it was in honor of those people who were prisoners of war, who had died in captivity, buried under bleachers in a mass grave. After the war was over, the Black community dug them up, buried them individually, brought the churches and the choirs out to celebrate these people. And that's how the picnicking started, because the kids came to sing. People brought their lunch baskets with them. And it was a celebration of the people who had given their lives for our freedom. It was not just an occasion to have a party. And so this is what we're up against, that we have to learn to resist the effort to have our wants programmed into our celebrations instead of remembering what it was that gave us the possibility to honor our needs.
Yes. And one of the things, Dr. Warren, as we move forth, again, remembering why we do things and then also standing with purpose, and when we go to the Juneteenth celebration, it's not just for a party, but it's to commemorate something that was just amazing, is that there were people that still were enslaved or doing slave work while they were yet still free. And so this really understanding the history, and when we come together to celebrate, come together to not only celebrate, but also come together to do some good work. One of the things I do love about the day of service with MLK is that it's not just about his celebrating his birthday, but it's about doing service. So we have to continue to realize that as much as we celebrate, we also have to be about it and also provide service.
Well, this is true, Dr. Thompson. And as you were speaking, I could only help but remember Mr. Sidney Cooper and how he brought the concept of Juneteenth to San Diego from Texas. And down on Imperial Avenue, he made sure that there was a celebration in his lifetime.
Mhm.
And after he passed, his children and those who supported the idea have embraced it. And they're the ones today that make the Cooper family celebration that now spans Ocean View Park, and people have to get shuttle services there, and it's a full day of activity. And so I think that's a very significant achievement.
And then also really the legacy that the family has kept it on even after the parents have passed away. The family and the children have continued the legacy. And although it is definitely a burden to raise money and to organize every single year, it's a good burden. And how do we continue to try to get the next generation to carry on the legacies? Because so many times the legacy of Black-owned businesses, the legacy of Black-owned celebrations go to the side as people pass away and the children don't carry it on.
Well, it's interesting that you would say that, Dr. Thompson. I wrote an editorial this week that it deals with our response to Trump's DEI and everything that they would do to erase us, from cutting of funds, eliminating programs. And I think what drove it home to me was the International African American Museum in South Carolina, where people were saying that the museum was going to close because of funding cuts, because Trump has tried to take funds from those programs, just like in Philadelphia, where they had the original house there. He had them take down all of the murals and the paintings and removing stuff. And the courts have ordered them to put it back, and they're repealing it, just like they were ordered to take their name off of the Kennedy Center and take their images down off of the myriad of buildings in D.C. that he was trying to put his face on, as if he was in Russia with Lenin's pictures going on everything. And so these are important times. But the solution that I suggested is that this is a time for us to stop begging for what we need, and what we want should be a part of what we need if it represents preserving our history and our culture. Let me be a little more specific about that. The museum in South Carolina, what they did was they came up with a furlough plan, and they staggered the work days and the work time for the employees so that the museum didn't have to close. Well, there are enough Black people in America that if each of us gave $1 or $5, we ought to be able to make up for whatever funds are being cut by Trump and the hatred that's being spewed through the people he put in positions to maintain what we have? Why are we focusing on crying over what's been cut when we have the more money than we've ever had before in our lives? We own businesses, we own buildings, we own property, we have jobs that we never could have had before, and we have millionaires and billionaires and people with money. Where is the desire on our part to make the decision that we're going to uh, organize and look at what's being cut and removed, and we're going to make a decision that we're going to fund our stuff ourselves until we can vote the restoration by putting the right people in office. And so I've said there are two pieces here: our vote and our dollar. And when we put these two pieces together, it won't matter what Trump says, because there's only one God that Trump understands, and that's money. His God is the dollar, and the dollar is his kryptonite. And so what we do is, all these people who are billionaires, if we look far enough, many of them are made their monies on our backs, and they're still making money on us. And we are too lazy to stop and look at who owns the subsidiaries and the things that we do business with. For instance, Target. We talked about boycotting Target, but Target owns Marshall. Target owns the household company. We look at people like Pepsi Co. and we don't say much, or what Coca-Cola did when they were trying to support the elimination of DEI in Atlanta and around the country. But just look for a moment. Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC, Frito-Lay, all of these things are owned by PepsiCo, which owns Pepsi. And so if we would harness our wants and start reserving our dollars for our needs. Look at what we spend on cigarettes and tobacco and liquor. I mean, tobacco, there's no reason. I see people on the corner with a sign begging for food to eat, but he's standing there smoking a cigarette. Well, cigarettes cost $12, $15 a pack. And so if you can afford a pack of cigarettes, then you ought to be able to feed yourself. So what you're doing is making the decision that the smoke is more important. All right. And what happens in our community Sunday? So many of us go to church, but Sunday is boom day for liquor stores. When I came to San Diego almost 40 years ago, at midnight on a Saturday evening, in the Ralphs and the Ralphs at the time, I remember near where I lived, they would put a tarp over the beer and lock it down because they wouldn't sell alcohol after midnight. That was what they called the blue laws, out of respect for the. Now nobody respects. I mean, everything is wide open, and this is a part of the problem that we have. So we need to re-examine ourselves and what's important to us and what we say we really want.
Yes, Dr. Warren, one of the things that we're finding out is that we as a people, especially African Americans, we have become more of a consumer than someone that actually is a developer and a builder and a person that reserves the right to save money and to use our money the way we can use it for our profit. And so a lot of times when people are looking for people to get engaged, get involved, many times they're looking what I call the chunky money. That means the 10, the 20, the $30,000. Can you drop $1 million? Can you drop $500,000? But they literally don't understand that corporations have been built on $5 and less. Ask not Donald Trump, but ask McDonald's. The Happy Meal was helped build McDonald's, and it was under $5 when it first started off. So anymore at the Big Mac and everything else. We're always looking for the big chunky money and not understanding that an ant, when they unite their forces together, they can lift anything they want to lift. A spider, if you get enough spiders together, they can have a web that will entangle a lion, but we don't come together and use what I call little and make it much. So as we are moving forth as consumers, we now have to say, can we put $5 away? Can everybody that is African American say, I can do $5 a week? If we just got 10% of the African American population to invest $5 a week into a fund, it will be a multi-million-dollar fund overnight.
Well, let's look at the problem with that, Dr. Thompson, because I addressed that in this week's editorial as well. And I'm going to go back and put this editorial online. The problem is that we know from experience with the paper that when you come up with a cause, there are people out there with no moral persuasion that will seek to bankrupt the cause. I remember many years ago, my late wife and I, we set up a fund to get a transplant, a heart transplant for a young lady named Lenore Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And we set it up in December at Union Bank, and we asked people to give. She was, I think, about 22, and she needed a heart. And so between December and April, I believe her birthday was in April, people gave over $80,000 to this fund. And she ended up getting a heart transplant on her birthday.
Amen.
Because people were supportive, okay? But at the same time, we found that there was an element of people who took coffee cans and got on the street and put her name on the cans because they've seen it in the paper and were out there collecting money for themselves and as if they were collecting money for her. Mm-hmm. And we're going to always have people like that. That's why in my editorial, I make the observation that, you know what? Churches built our schools. Churches can go back to being our libraries. Churches can go back to being a number of things and having food pantries. But every church is not church worthy. Mm-hmm. Because a number of churches are doing what? A number of churches are just raising money for the pastor, or the church has become the pastor's job, and the pastor's fleecing the church. Okay? So that means we have to do our homework in terms of where we put funds. I always remind us that though we might be small, and Dr. Thompson, everybody can't do $5 a week, but there's so many of us that waste more than that on the things that we want that we don't have to have. That money that we spend going to the fast food place makes all the difference in the world. In terms of look at how much, in California, minimum wage is $17.50 an hour. Mm-hmm. Do you know in the rest of the country, the federal minimum wage is like $7 an hour? Okay. Mm-hmm. And so we're buying all of these fast food sandwiches and fries and things that are not good for us. Mm-hmm. So much so in the South Pacific, there was an island there that drove McDonald's off the island and out because of the derogatory, the detrimental impact of eating so much of that stuff that was noted in terms of what was happening to the residents. And so we need to think twice about what's important, what we do with what we buy, how we're going to spend. Mm-hmm. And then, because you and I know we've tried in this city many times to bring Black people together in the spirit of unity, to have a discussion in terms of how we can collectively impact where we are. We can never get beyond a few people with their egos and their ideas of that if they can't be in charge, they don't want to help anything. And so they will turn against it and they won't work to help make it happen.
Well, Dr. Warren, that's the biggest thing that I think that in moving forward, to do the best for everybody, we all have something to work on, but at the end of the day, if we're working together for the better good of the entire body and the entire community, and it's always hard because, one of the things I've always noticed is that people spend a tremendous amount of time counting other people's money and being concerned about what other people are doing with their money. And I'm saying, let's not worry about counting their money. Let's worry about the focus of what is at hand. And if we focus on that, then we don't have to worry about counting everybody else's money because we'll have money to count ourselves.
Well, that's good that you said that, Dr. Thompson, because 25 years ago, I guess it's close to 25, when we first started doing Gold Coast, The idea behind Gold Coast was that if we could take an event and raise a couple of $100,000 in terms of ticket sales, holding black sports events at what was Qualcomm Stadium then. The
Mhm.
largest number we ever got was 25,000 people, and tickets were no more than $15 a piece. And the whole idea was that we saw organizations here, NAACP and a number of them, who were always going to certain white corporate entities begging for a few dollars for to pay for their dinner annually, which they couldn't fill up the seats even after they got the money. But they were not thinking in terms of how they could really have made a benefit other than begging. So our idea was if we can raise this money, we can give grants, 15, $20,000 to the organizations. They just come. Well, here's the key. What did people do? Once they saw folks showing up there and buying tickets and coming, the big question, well, what are they going to do with the money? Where's the money going? And my response was, you never asked the charges, what were they doing with the money when you went over there and tailgated and filled the stadium? So why are you worrying about what we're going to do with the money? Not that we ever made rich. We didn't, because we spent a tremendous amount of money every year trying to build something here, having people work against it, even though we had those who supported it. There's no reason we shouldn't have filled the place.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that people have something that misconstrued every time, and this is what someone told me. They said sometimes you can make something look so easy that people don't really realize the sacrifice in the things that it costs to be in it. People don't realize to do a Gold Coast Classic, you might as well just sit up there and say, I got to put together $2 million to do a Gold Coast Classic. Back then, it's probably quadruple at this point because of all the things of flying teams and flying bands and housing them, transportation. And one of the things that we found out, even with doing the Gold Coast Classic, was the key thing is that we did not have enough Black-owned caterers to be able to provide food for all the people that need it.
No.
And watch this, Dr. Warren. Fast forward to 2026, NASCAR, believe it or not, NASCAR is in town on Juneteenth weekend. And at Juneteenth weekend, they are still looking for caterers. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of us don't even know NASCAR is coming. We might have saw it on the news, and they're going to spend millions and millions of dollars, but very little in our community because we did not engage and get to the table before they already ate dinner and had dessert.
And yet when NASCAR was operating in Phoenix, they were very much involved with the Arizona Informant, the black paper there in Phoenix. Very, very much committed from a community standpoint in terms of what they were doing. Here in this place, when the first Super Bowl was held here, the first Super Bowl came to San Diego. They were having a big reception, and all of the black restaurants together couldn't pool their resources to cater one reception because they were still in their own little individual silos, and they wouldn't come out and they wouldn't work to help each other. And so opportunities have been missed and lost because of what I call the crab mentality of holding back.
Yeah.
We don't have we have some businesses today, but most of us don't know where they are. I mean, we have a black chamber today, which to me is an embarrassment in terms of what Jerry and I had in mind when we created the first black chamber over 35 years ago. We brought businesses together and helped people get contracts and services. We didn't have a resource center. We didn't have multi-million-dollar grants. We didn't have offices downtown. No, we gave our own time. I sat and helped people fill out their forms and do proposals and grants and the whole bit and answer their questions. No charge. All they had to do was just pay $75 and be a part of it. And here we have the chamber now with a building that they bought over there at Euclid and Imperial at the Four Corners of Life. And we still have a BID, which is a byproduct of Brooke Huffman when he created the Merchants Association. It wasn't black, just the merchants, because we had all these Chaldean businesses here that were not hiring our people, and yet they were taking money out of the community. And so to this day, we don't have the history of these events. And the people who are using names like Black Chamber, they're not in the community with any visibility in terms of working. They're certainly not working with you or me. And we represent the anchors of the community. Whenever they have something of significance, they put it in a business journal. They don't even come in our direction. And they go through the symbol of holding offices down at the Jacobs Center. And I don't know how that's going to work in terms of being in the community if it's going to be anything significant. And so we still have people, we have some organizations that bring businesses together, like Black San Diego. We are part of it, you and I. We salute those young people. And the Voice and Viewpoint, I recognized the two founders a couple of years ago as entrepreneurs. They're professionals with their own professions, and yet they find time to reach in and help and get involved. And that's the key. You can't come to a community based on what you're going to get. You come with the attitude of what can I give? And if you give, you will get in return. That's why after 20 some years, you and I are still doing Black Men and Women United. It's been over 20 years since we just started, but we've maintained it because our goal is to help people and not to pimp or hustle people.
Yeah. And one of the things that, as we're moving forth, and a lot of times we say, here's the history. And I always tell people it's so important for you to understand the history and why people might be in silos or why people are not engaged. But then it's also, as we begin to move forward, to celebrate those people that are literally trying to bridge the gap and work together. You mentioned Black San Diego. Again, these two young ladies that saw a need. Yep. And they came together. There were more than two of them at the time, but the two that stuck through, the ups and downs and the growth of it. And yet still, they work full-time in their other profession, but they had a vision for the community. And I celebrate these young people that are coming forth. Yes. We are very fortunate, and I say we because we have some young, brilliant minds that are literally opening up doors and avenues that literally we're going through because they're there. So I look at as we're moving forth, and I look at like the Juneteenth celebration. I'm a big proponent that I've always been that I don't do events on Juneteenth at other facilities, unless it is something that is by us for us. And so with the Cooper family celebration, that's the oldest, I believe, in San Diego. And I tell people, don't go in direct competition with them for an audience. Now we have stuff that's happening up in North County. Well, again, they're up there and they need to have something in their geographical area. But I always try to tell people that there's enough room at the table. Juneteenth started because they said Juneteenth, so it's not just 19th. That's the holiday, but you can start Juneteenth on June 12th. And so we are seeing activities on 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th.
Well, remember now, in North County picked up Juneteenth after they saw it down here, because we started doing Juneteenth activities separate and apart, but not competing with the Cooper family effort. And one of the big sponsors of Juneteenth at that time was Budweiser. And Budweiser was putting dollars in to help have these community events and giving grants. And so North County picked up on that, and they started and they grew from that exposure. And so Juneteenth is so important because it's another opportunity for us to be reminded of who we are and where we are and how we got here and what we need to be doing going forward. And there's still time for us to pull together.
Yeah, and what I love about it is it's bringing us together. One of the things that I love about it is many people that come out to the celebration. There's no violence. Most of the time, everything is always handled within the community. And again, I want to continue to applaud everyone that is celebrating Juneteenth before it became a federal holiday and it say the day off. I want to applaud you because you stuck through, you saw the vision, you understood what it was about, and you made your celebrations great. as we begin to look at how we as a community, now I always say we as a community, we have to be very mindful not to lose things that have been established for us as a community. I always say we have the oldest Black newspaper here. We have to make sure that we continue to invest, we continue to send, because that is our history, and we're talking about over 60 years of history. And what's sad to me, Dr. Warren, is I've watched a lot of businesses that were Black owned, that were icons in our community, disappear because it was not a passion of the legacy or the children after the owner. And so I tell people consistently that don't get so wrapped up in nepotism or keeping it in the family that you lose the legacy of your business. Make sure that you have people that have a heart for your business and want to continue it on even after you are gone. If they're family, all the better. But if they're not family, you can structure your business that the family still will be blessed, but the business will go on and be a blessing to the community.
Well, but business has to be about business first.
Yeah.
And so, and if your business doesn't keep track with time and what's happening, then you're going to go out of business.
Yeah.
And I always use the example of a corner where there are 3 locations selling sweet potato pies.
Mm-hmm.
And you decide that you're going to come and bring your grandma's recipe and make the 4th corner. Well, what makes you think that your sweet potato pie is going to be better than the other 3? There has to be something different about it, okay?
It's the crust.
Yeah, it's the crust, right? Well, when I think about this whole thing, I think about chicken, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we've seen chicken for so long. It was Church's Chicken, it was KFC. But now we have, here in San Diego, we have a place called Chicken Charlie's,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then we have Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we still have variations of chicken, just like we have variations of hamburgers, from McDonald's, the Burger King, the Wendy's. You got all of these variations, but you have to work at change in terms of keeping up if the business is going to flourish. Voice and Viewpoint has gone. We will, as far as I'm concerned, we will always print, but at the same time, we become a digital technological entity that's not just reaching San Diego, but we have followings all over the world at this point in terms of people.
That's when I got to ask the question.
What?
I came in to connect with the Voice and Viewpoint when we got ready for press. Y'all was back there, y'all was cutting and typing and pasting and everything else. How have you personally made the transition? Because when you old school, you like to feel it, you like to do it. But how have you made the transition to keep the paper relevant?
By getting out of the way.
Okay.
That's the first thing you have to do, because my car is older than the people that work for me. Okay. But at the same time, I can't take credit for where we are. I have to give so much of it to Latanya, our managing editor, who put the hours in terms of the cohorts and the training and all of the things that go with pulling in the right people. Our staff is scattered from Oklahoma to Florida to Africa to Europe. There are people working for the paper in so many different places, even in different countries. But we've learned to harness the technology. We no longer have to bend over the table. We have the paper put together in those locations, and I can sit right here if I wanted to, because we went to press. What is the day? Tuesday. We go to press tomorrow, and I can pull up each page of my paper and proof it from wherever I am, look at it, and give an okay if I need to, and it'll be printed and it'll be delivered by truck. Don't even print in San Diego County. Doesn't even have any printing places left anymore. We're printing out in Anaheim. Paper has to be transported, but we still do it. And so this is not intended to be a commercial for Voice and Viewpoint, but we're talking about there's still room for businesses, and there's room to make money, and we need to start thinking in terms of it. I saw a sign once that says so many of us are so busy making a living that we don't know how to make a life. So it says we make a living by what we earn, we make a life by what we give. And so this is important. And when we get involved in giving, then there's then reciprocal process. All you have to do is read Luke 6:38. And it's straight out of the Bible. It says, give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will he cause men to give unto your bosom. He wouldn't say you're going to win the lottery. He says people will give, people will come. And that's the reciprocal process.
And he never said righteous men. He never
No,
said church
no,
people.
no.
He said men in general. Let me go back, because you made a statement about saying get out the way. I think that sometimes when people hear the word get out the way, that means that you go over in a corner, you don't say nothing, you don't do nothing, you just sit over there and let everybody else do the work. As a person that is now considered to be an elder, I say the same thing. I get out the way to allow my young people and the young talent to grow, but I'm still here to guide them to things that they will never ever see until I share it with them. And then as I share it with them, I give them the wisdom to not have to make the same mistakes or go through the same trials that I've made. So even in your getting out the way, you basically, to me, what you did was you aerated the soil so that it could breathe, and you still
Well,
was there to nurture.
oh yeah, you have to be there because I mean I tried the other way once, that didn't work. You just can't step aside and then expect it's going to work. People have to be willing to build and to learn. They got to be bring a cup that's still half full, and then you can add to it, and you can build on it. And that's what's happened. They bring ideas, and right now the industry is caught up in this AI revolution, and AI is impacting media and journalism in a big way. And one has to study what things you embrace and what things you don't
Mhm,
embrace, because everything that looks good is not good for you, though it might seem like it is.
mhm,
And so these are things, but I don't want us to get lost on the business end. The thing that we need to do the most doesn't cost us anything.
mhm,
That's changing our attitude in terms of our willingness to work together and our desire to embrace each other for the good of the whole.
mhm.
That gets to be so important. And there's frustration that goes with that. I mean, there are people in this community that I repeatedly try to reach out to and work with, and they've made it very clear under no circumstances they don't care and they're not interested. Well, I'm not going to get mad about it. I'm just going to move on. I'm not going to stay there and worry over that. There's too much to be done, and there are too many good young people
Mhm.
doing things that want leadership. They don't want to regurgitate yesterday. They want to learn how to go forward. But the biggest problem they have is a lot of them don't want to hear about yesterday before they go forward.
Yeah,
And you need to know what happened before you got here so that you will know what to do,
yeah.
you know?
And one of the things about it, Dr. Warren, this has been a very heavy business week for my organization. And in the last I don't know, 3 or 4 days, I've literally brought in deals of about $25,000. And of those $25,000, none of that money came to my organization.
Right,
It was literally helping other people connect.
right.
And literally driving down the freeway today, someone called, hey, I need X, Y, and Z. I said, you know what? Thank you for that. Because somebody just came into my office that has exactly what you need. Let me put you two together. Y'all do the deal. Then they would call back and say, well, what's your percentage rate on it? I said, when I call you, answer. That's all I ask from you. And if we learn to, connect people, help other people grow, but then also when we call you, answer. And that's been the beautiful thing about even in how we have worked with God radio and the Voice and Viewpoint. We literally can wake up in the morning and see something that needs to be done, and we get on the phone and call each other, and it's not like put this down, put that down. No, we know that if we do it right, we will always grow and prosper. So my challenge to everybody is don't always only be available when you're making money, because sometimes in your connecting other people and helping other people to grow, eventually all of that is going to come back to you tenfold.
Well, that's been one of the Achilles heels of Black Men and Women United, Dr. Thompson.
Mhm.
We don't have it as much now as we used to years ago, because we would have people who only come at the point that they want to do an infomercial about their business or their interests. And when you're doing the hellos and the round robins, how are you? They want to take over and make a speech. And then if you let them do so after the speech, they're gone. Well, no, you can't do that. You've got to be engaged and involved like the rest of us. You just can't come in and use this resource and then keep on out the door. And so I think that that's an important observation that you're making, that people need to have a willingness to look at who can I help, how can I help. Now, let me say something about what you just said. The connection of people who have mutual needs is one of the biggest businesses in Washington, D.C.,
Mhm.
outside of the politics of Congress.
Mhm.
People are making fortunes and empires putting folks together
Mhm.
who otherwise wouldn't find each other.
Mhm.
And so there's nothing wrong with getting paid for what you do, but there's also the need to know when you get paid and when you should forego payment
Mhm.
to make things happen.
Mhm.
And see, that's the part that most of us mess up. We are so short-term oriented that we want to get paid right away.
Now, Doc, you're saying something right there.
Yeah,
I always say that we focus on the kibbles and bits and we never get to the steak
yeah,
because we're worried for the little bitty money, not realizing that this deferment is for the bigger amount of money that you can get when you connect people and things of that nature. So I'm always challenging people, stop fighting over the kibbles and bits. I'm not saying that, $50 can't help me. I said, but $50,000 can help me a lot more.
Well, this is true, and it takes a lot to get people to see uh, what we're talking about here, because you've got to put your heart in it, and if your heart is right, then the rest of it will follow.
Mhm.
And so we can't quit. We have to keep on pushing forward. As we talk about Juneteenth here today, which was the opening to all of the rest of this discussion, it is a good time for us to do an assessment of what's around us. What can we do to be supportive and to help? One of my favorite examples, Dr. Thompson, is what we go through with the Voice and Viewpoint. Each week we put it in newsstands and we find people put in 50 cents and take 4 or 5 papers or take all the papers, and they don't consider it stealing. But you're stealing. It's not so much the issue of the 50 cents, is that you don't understand that when you do that, you rob from the next person who could have had the information, or you're gonna grow in and take all the papers and pass them out like they're yours to give away, as opposed to understanding that when we're dealing with a person's product, if a Black person opens a business that I know of, historically, I've gone to that business to make a purchase. I haven't gone to that business to walk in the door and say, I'm from the Voice and Viewpoint, you need to advertise. No, my first goal is to support your business. And if I support your business and your business does well, then I do well from the standpoint of having done that support. So this is what all of us have the ability to do that. Now, here's a point I want to make that's so important. I have found that a lot of Black people confuse discipline and oppression.
Mhm.
And it's almost a subconscious thing that we do. Oppression was a result of people telling us what we can't do.
Mhm.
You can't have this job, you can't have that, you got to do this for 50 cents, you got to do that. And so when people start telling us what to do, we don't want to hear that. Okay. Discipline allows us to engage in what's referred to as deferred gratification. All right. It's like I remember in Georgia there was a man who owned a cab company, and he used to tell me how the people who leased cabs from him, they rented the cabs by the day, and at the end of the day, most of them turned in whatever they made, and then on Friday they got a paycheck. But the ones who didn't do that, who spent whatever they made each day, on Friday they didn't have any more than what they made on Friday.
Mhm.
Deferred gratification said, I know I need to do certain things, but I'm going to wait till this time and then I can make the purchase because then I have more to use and maybe some bargaining power to do it. Most of us have to be taught how to defer what we want.
Mhm.
Okay. And the things around us program us to do the opposite. That's why all the fast food joints are in our neighborhoods. The McDonald's, the Burger Kings, the Kentucky Fries, everything, Popeyes. Yeah, because we're going to go in and it's going to smell good. The fans going to crank it up and we're going to go buy. And the prices have become ridiculous in terms of what it costs to buy what they call a meal deal. But we're going to spend all that money at one time as opposed to going to the grocery store, making a purchase of something that hasn't been loaded with steroids and stuff and planning a meal and then taking the time to prepare that meal.
Mhm.
And so when we go and do that, that makes a difference.
So, Dr. Lauren, let me ask you a question, and maybe it's just me, but have you ever noticed that when you go to a majority minority community, when you pass by the McDonald's and all those fast food, you actually can smell the food?
Oh,
But
yeah.
if you go into other residents in other areas, there's no smell.
No.
So
And-
my question is, do we have different ventilation things for community restaurants versus non-community?
Well, I'm going to answer you this way. Years ago, a certain white gentleman bought 92.5,
Mm-hmm.
and he also owned a place called, I think it was Hometown. It was before Hometown Buffet.
Mm-hmm.
It was another name that
Furs.
he had. Furs, yes. And so Furs wasn't doing all that great. He wouldn't open Hometown. And what happened was the people got mad that he changed the format of 92.5 and what they call urban, which was away from us. And so people were talking about they were going to boycott the station. And so this gentleman came to my office and pulled up a chair and said, well, just what am I going to do? They're talking about boycotting me and everything. And so I said, well, what you need to do is increase the days that you have ribs. All right. I know people are going to say, I can't believe he did this. Is racist against us. He's doing this is a business observation. Turn on the fan, let the fan blow the fragrance out. People are going to come and buy it, and pretty soon the station thing is going to be secondary. And that's exactly what happens. And that's what you see. They blow that flavor out. Okay. When you go in the grocery store, the deli is close enough that you get that
Right at the door.
right at the door. And it's what they have already, the scientists have determined that is the sugar and salt content that makes you salivate and decide that you want to go buy. Okay. And so this is a manipulation. So discipline, this is why I talked about discipline and oppression. Discipline allows you to forego. One should never go grocery shopping when you're hungry. You shouldn't go shopping any place when you're hungry because you're going to be buying all kinds of stuff psychologically. So we need to just become aware. And I think that when we have these kind of conversations like you and I are having, people have these kind of conversations on the East Coast all the time.
Mhm.
And it helps folks make some decisions and re-examine. And if we only reach one or two people who think about how they're spending, this has been time well spent in terms of making some impact.
Yes, and Dr. Warren, as we get ready to close out this show, let's talk about your editorial this week in the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint. I also want to talk about Bayside Gospel Concert Board, the Midway.
Well, I want you to go ahead with the Bayside because the editorial I'm putting, will be putting more online probably tomorrow, and you'll be able to hear it. And it talks about the things I mentioned earlier, that we come together and share money, pay for things that we need ourselves rather than begging and complaining about who's not giving us money.
Mm-hmm.
We have the capacity to fund anything that we need,
Yes.
including your Bayside concert,
Amen.
where people should be coming. If they can go down to the Rady Shell and spend all that money down there, they can certainly come spend a few dollars and enjoy the concert and at the same time help the community and help what you're doing.
Yes, and we're really excited about this year's Bayside Gospel Concert Board, the Midway. Thank you for being forever. This is our 13th annual, and all 13 years San Diego Voice and Viewpoint has been there with us. This year, we have turned it into a celebration of women empowerment. And so we're going to be celebrating 8 amazing women from our community, as well as all the performers this year are going to be women. And so I look back on, the value that I have for my own mother and how she sold into our lives, and to my mother-in-law, to Miss Jerry Warren. So many women shaped who a lot of us are today. And I said, well, let's take this big platform, the first aircraft carrier ever to be commanded by an African-American man, and let's start celebrating women. And so the 8 women are simply Rhonda Hunt Phillips, and she's what we call our own very own hidden figures right here in San Diego. Chida Warren, you know what I'm saying? Again, a Renaissance woman doing amazing things from the mayor's office to teaching, an adjunct professor, and I believe she might even be getting ready to go to law school. I'm expecting some big things from her. And then Miss Diamond Brandon. We also have Key Hagan from the San Diego Urban League. We have Sheila Burrell. She is a 2-time Olympian, 5-time national champion, and she is the track coach for the world's team at San Diego State, and she's still producing Olympians each and every year. I'm just really proud to have her. We also have Zakina Stewart, and she's been honored for her work with grief counseling and helping people go through grief of the loss of loved ones. And this amazing. And then I look at Francine Maxwell. I call her the hurricane because she always is in the mix to stir things up for us to hear and to know. And I always say she always has the receipts. And then none other than Sabrina Bishop, a director with UDW. Again, all 8 of the women this year have distinctively impacted our community. And we have a range from young and seasoned ladies. And then we bring none other to the stage than Alexa Spikes. Alexa Spikes was the runner-up on Sunday's Best. We have Carolyn Traylor, the lady who came up with the song, There's a Story Behind My Praise. We have Sonia Griffin. Sonia Griffin was the lady who came with That's When You Bless Me, with the LA Mass Choir. And we have Lakia Stokes, who's currently right on tour with David Mann and Tamala Mann right now as the opening for their tour. And a little girl by the name of Amari Michelle, kind of know her, and she's also going to be performing.
Granddaughter.
But it's going to be second to none. We're going to ask that you will go out and check it out on Eventbrite, The Voice and Viewpoint, GOD Radio, and we're going to all be in the house. Dr. Warren, final word.
Well, don't forget, too, as we move to next week, you'll be Gospel at the Fair.
Yes.
And so people will be turning out for that event as well. And I would like to remind people that this week in The Voice and Viewpoint, we have our annual commemorative page in memory of Jerry Warren, our late publisher. And this is the 17th year of acknowledging her passing and the contribution that she's left. And so if you didn't know anything about her, then it's a chance to read up on it. And we need to keep up with the history of those who've come before us. We want to thank you for all of the support. We want to thank those of you who follow and tune into this program and be with us. And we wish you Godspeed until next time.
The next time, this is from the Desk of the Editor with Dr. John Warren. Y'all be blessed.